is a quilter, and they could say, hey, you should try this or do that.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why. In a chain setting, I don't know if you're going to be able to pick the person's brain who's cutting the fabric for you and saying, what would you do with this? Or,
Right.
Things like that. So
Yeah.
I think maybe that's why it's really more of like a custom thing, because quilting, every quilt is unique.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's fascinating. I think it feels like it's, with the guilds are so important. It's got this kind of old timey, like it harkens back to its history pretty strongly, while still being super hyper capitalist and have all these other things, and quilt market and all, it's exploded right in the last since 78 or whatever. But it's kind of interesting. That's what makes it so interesting to study, is that it's this amalgamation of all these different things. And
now it's like what's going to happen, like, everything's happening so quickly now in every other industry, and now there's spoon flour and, is individual printing going to be the future?
Right.
Or all these companies, I don't know. Am I going to be here in 10 years? I don't know. And that's
amazing,
that's definitely a concern.
Yeah, it's craziness. Okay, so let's go back. Let's tell the story of your family real quick, so people understand sort of who you are and sort of what your family does.
Starting when?
From the beginning, like the quick version of from the beginning. How about that?
Oh man. Okay, so basically, my great grandfather was jobbing, buying odd lots.
Just a second. So what is jobbing? Because I read that and I have no idea what that means.
He basically would be buying, inexpensive stuff, scraps, ends, bad printings, and he would resell that. And there's still jobbers out there today, guys, who are selling, fabric at, 50. I'll sell you 1,000,000 yards at 50 cents. Stuff like that, where they're just kind of movers and, bottom feeders, I guess. They would be just selling the odds and ends. And there is a market, people are looking, not all the fabric that is sold and used is on an outside of a garment. For example, we used to sell to the casket trade, where they would just put the fabric inside the caskets, just to, so the casket would be soft and comfy. So there is, a use of fabric, inexpensive fabric for other things. Some people are doing a lot of charity stuff, so they want to buy something as inexpensively as possible, but they want to make a blanket that could keep someone warm who they don't really care what it looks like. They just need to be warm because they're trying to survive.
Yeah. Okay, so your great-grandfather was jobbing, and then what happened?
He was jobbing, and then he had relatives in the business with him, and then he kind of went out on his own and did his own thing, and he continued to job and sell flannel and get involved in all kinds of women's sleepwear, a lot of different areas of the women's sleepwear, and pajamas. Like I know growing up, I mean, my dad used to bring home pajamas and nightgowns for my mom, and like for example, we had a business that did the cuffs, so we did the little cuffs on the end of a pajama pants.
Oh, how interesting. Yeah.
So a lot of different pieces. So we had a lot of different companies. All the companies had, someone's initials, my dad and his cousin, my grandfather and his brother, my aunt, and they did all these different parts of the pajamas and women's sleepwear. And that's just where it went. And then we did that for a long time. That was probably my grandfather, my dad, maybe a little bit of my great-grandfather too. And then somewhere along the way, maybe probably about, maybe 20 years ago, we somehow got into the chain business first, selling to Walmart. That was probably with our A. Nathan division. We started selling to Walmart, and then we discovered the quilt shops and what we call it the over-the-counter business. I don't know if you've come across that term yet, but that's what we're calling our industry now. Excuse me, over-the-counter fabrics. So we bought A. Nathan. We started selling the chains. Then we bought Henry Glass. We started selling the quilt shops. And then it was kind of lucky. We always go back and say, was my dad did he know something was coming, or did we just get lucky to have bought the companies that sold to the quilt shops and to the chain stores? But the timing was good because all of a sudden the Chinese took all the business overseas on the sleepwear because the price, we just couldn't compete with them.
That's remarkable. And so, but you had already transitioned, so you were okay. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Interesting. All right.
Yes, so, we got lucky. We always say, were we lucky or good? But it's better to be lucky than good.
Okay, so tell me the difference between the companies we keep talking about. So you have 5 of them that are under your control at this point. Is that right? Am I right?
We have Studio E, Henry Glass, and Blank sell to quilt shops only. Then we have A. Nathan and Fabric Editions. They sell to anyone. More chains than anyone, but everyone.
So how are they different? Tell me, what makes one, do they have a particular style, or what's difference between Blank Quilting and Henry Glass, for instance?
Okay, so Henry Glass is probably our oldest quilt shop company, and they're the most well known. I would say if you add Studio Blank together, their sales are just a little bit more than Henry Glass. So Henry Glass is really very well established, and they have really good licensed designers. So they have this Kim Deal. I don't know if you've come across her name yet, but she's a big deal. But she's Diehl.
Right.
She's huge for Henry Glass. Every line she does is a couple 100,000 yards, which is really a huge line, which is amazing. And then they had Buggy Barn, who since separated. These were 2 sisters, but now the sisters broke off, and now it's one sister design. So they're with us. And they're just tons of names that they like, the bigger names out there.
Yeah.
And they're more in the I always forget this word. That they do more the darker fabrics.
Yeah.
A little bit like the I don't know if it's folkloric, maybe that's not the word. But in any case, more the richer, darker designs. Yeah. Kim Deals are just very rich colors, simple, nothing crazy as far as designs, but she just has a following, and she shows you how to use the fabric. And people
I'm on your website now, which is, if you just go to it's Monday. HenryGlassFabrics.com. You can, if you're listening, you can follow along. But Kim Deals is like browns and kind of earthy tones, right? Is that
right? Rich olives and burgundies and even blacks and browns.
Yeah. Interesting.
Things like that.
Yeah.
So Studio E was the next company. Studio E was really more modern as compared to Henry Glass. That's kind of how I would pinpoint it. But for Studio E, our lead designer, I'd probably say, is Pepper Corey. I don't know if you came across her, but she has been around for a while, had quilt shops, writes books. But she got us into the peppered cottons. Do you know about shot cottons?
No, tell me about those.
Okay, so shot cottons, this was an item, she didn't invent it or anything like that. We just came up with our own colors. Fassett had been doing them, and these are shot cotton. So basically, the color in the warp and the weft are different. So it creates an effect. I could send you some samples of that.
I see it. Yeah, they're really cool.
But so you might have like a green and a blue, and when you look at it from different angles, it has a different appearance, but it's not straight solid.
Yeah,
so it's really cool. More interesting.
Right. Is this the kind of the Moda grunge stuff? Is that kind of
No,
thing?
that's printed.
That's printed.
It's more like Fassett's shot cottons.
Got it. They're really pretty.
Yeah. Yes.
Very cool. Okay, so Studio E. So,
okay, so that was Studio E.
Yeah.
So basically, the important people for Studio E, definitely Pepper Corey. There's some others along the way. Sandra Magsalmon, she's an author that did these books that have like appendages that come out. So if you go to a Barnes and Nobles, she'll have a book about a dog, and the ears will pop out of the top. So we started doing that with fabric books, and I could send you some of those too.
Cool.
I'm gonna make a list of
really interesting. And how do you get the designers for these? Like, okay, well, tell me more about the companies. There's too many things to talk about. So we've got Studio
Okay, fine. So let me just finish. So basically, I'll end that on Studio E. For Blank is new. They had definitely a well-established company. They just made some poor business decisions, so that got them messed up and in financial trouble. So we bought them about 3 or 4 years ago. Their specialties were definitely their basics. They had a lot of different basics. They used also a lot of this glitter on a bunch of different fabrics, like a metallic glitter. For them right now, I would have to say that their 2 most important designers would be Tana Mueller of Western Denim and Dirt. She's out of Texas. She does a lot of Western theme lines that do very well for us. And then more recently, we hooked up with a woman named Hope Yoder, and she's big in the embroidery area. She does a lot of these shows where companies bring her in to help them sell their sewing machines and embroidery machines. But really, Blank is in a regroup. We're trying to find more new people who are well-known in the industry to try to gain a following for them.
Interesting. And how important is it to have designers that have followings as part of?
So it's huge.
It's huge.
That's huge. I mean, for Henry Glass, it's so huge you can't even imagine.
That it's personality and brand driven of the designers that are part of the collection.
It is a lot, and now with social media, that's playing such a huge role in promoting these people, and they're writing articles and posting. You could go and look at a post, and you'll see. There's a dinky post with 5 comments and 12 likes, and then there's a Kim Deal one with 500 likes and 1,000 comments, and everyone's going crazy and sharing, and so it definitely plays a role.
Yeah,
for sure.
All right, did we get through all the companies?
Yeah,
we did. Awesome.
Yes.
Okay. Hold on, let me get back to my list. So what do you do as president of all these companies? What does your daily life look like? This seems like a huge task. Yeah.
What does my daily life look like?
Do you sleep?
I'm not a great sleeper. I'm up early. I try to exercise because it gets me going really well. Come in. Usually around, it depends. Today I was in at 8. Sometimes I'm in at 9. I stay late. I usually make a 6:11 train. So I leave here at around 6 o'clock. And then during the day I deal with everything. A lot of emails. We have design meetings. We have to figure out deliveries. I just kind of do it all. We're not a GM. We don't have people walking around the office not doing stuff. Everyone's busy.
Yeah.
And we keep busy. I mean, I work all the time. I'm always answering emails. I'm always working on the weekends. I travel a lot. Just try to do it all. And on top of that, I blog and I write all of our newsletters, which is for Studio E and Blank. I write one every other 2 weeks. So
that's a lot
doing 24 newsletters, 52 blogs. I now have my executive Facebook page where I'm trying to keep that active and get people into it. And then I'm giving away the sewing machines, which I usually do that on the weekends. I call the people who submit requests and talk to them and see why they want a machine and if they deserve one.
Right. So tell us a little bit more about the sewing machine giveaway.
Okay. So last summer, 2017, this was when Florida and Texas were having a lot of storms and people were suffering very badly, and I don't know why, but people decided to ask me what I was going to do, and I gave it some thought, and I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to give away sewing machines. So I contacted, excuse me for 1 second. I contacted a company, Eversewn, which is owned by Brewer, or they're connected. Brewer is a distributor that we use, and I said, could we get some machines? I'll pay for them. You could ship them. And we did it, and they gave me a good deal. And I just put put out the word, and people started submitting requests. I said, have you been affected by the storms? Are you dealing with a tragedy in your life? And it morphed into all different things.